Hi you guys, it's Lynnea and welcome to my video for the Kindred Stamps August 2019 release. I'm going to be using this adorable little stamp set called Hang Around along with the chevron stencil. This stencil is one of my favorites to create backgrounds because it's really great for guy cards or girl cards. So as I was creating this, I thought that I would do a rainbow background, but I decided instead to kind of keep the colors more neutral. So I'm going to be using some Twisted Citron, some peacock feathers, and some Dusty Concord for this little background. And my idea for this card is to create a colorful frame with a gray background and have my little possum hanging from the top of my card and kind of swinging back and forth. I guess maybe it's called a swing card. I'm not sure. I've never made a card like this before. So I definitely made some mistakes along the way. So I have some tips and tricks. So as we get to assembling this card, I will share those with you. For now though, I'm just using that chevron stencil. I sprayed the back with Pixie spray, stuck it onto a piece of cardstock, and I'm just blending on those inks, green at the bottom and then blue and then purple. So now I have a smaller piece of cardstock. This is going to kind of be my peek through portion, so it doesn't need to be as large. I made my colorful piece large. It's 6 by 6. It's definitely bigger than I need it to be, but I'm going to create a frame out of it. So I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of room for these dies. I didn't want to have to redo this because I always end up making my stencil pieces too small or not the right size. So I made it bigger than I needed. And I die cut a frame around the outside, so they're stitching around the outside, and then a portion of that rectangle cut out from the center. I took that gray stenciled piece and I lined it up so that it is one continuous pattern, just changing colors. Trimmed off the excess, and now here's where I'm going to start kind of building my swing mechanism. I'm taking the smallest circle die that I have and I die cut that from the center of my background piece. I definitely could have used a hole punch and it actually might have worked better, but like I said, this is my first time making this, so I used the smallest circle die that I had and it ended up being a bit too big, but I made it work anyway. I stamped out my little critters here and I'm just going to use some warm gray markers to color them in. Started with my lightest color and then I went in on the edges with my darkest, blended that out with my medium, and then over the whole thing again with the lightest. And I did the same thing for the little paws and the branch and everything too. And then I cut out that little critter. So I have these little slider discs and I put one behind my little circle punch out there, and it is actually the same size as my circle. The slider disc is maybe a tiny bit larger. I added a circle foam piece and then I have a strip of acetate. It's maybe like a 1/2 inch wide and I cut it longer than I needed it to be. Attached that to the foam piece and then I added another foam circle on top of that and another slider disc on top of that. You can kind of see how it's supposed to move around like this. I'm going to add my little possum onto the acetate strip, and I cut the acetate strip longer than I need it to be so that I can just trim off the portion that's kind of hanging out from under his belly. I added a layer of foam tape underneath my chevron background piece, and this is my first tip. This card needed more foam tape. I did a single layer underneath the gray and then underneath the frame, and I should have done a double layer underneath both, because you're going to see here as I'm assembling my card, I'm putting the frame right on top and I go to kind of shake and swing my little possum and he's not really moving all that well. So if you do a double layer of foam tape underneath your background piece and then a double layer underneath your frame, making it a total of 4 layers of foam tape, I think this guy would move around a whole lot more. But he's super cute. I love him anyway, but if I do make this card again, I will definitely use more foam tape. But here he is. I added some glitter, stamped a sentiment, and here he is just kind of swinging back and forth. And I had an extra piece left over from the center die cut, so of course I'm going to use that to create just a simple accompanying card. And that is it for this project. Hope you guys loved it. See you next time. Bye.